All right, welcome everybody. My name is Sejal Thakkar, and I'm your host for this exclusive Nobody Studios Culture Livestream. And I am really excited about this conversation today because we have a special guest today, Matt Savarick, joining us. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Matt, I love your mission. And I'm just going to read it for everybody. As I was like prepping last night and I read this, it just jumped right out at me. It says, help you find clarity, achieve success, and make your impact. I just love that. So, was there a key turning point that inspired you or that led you to this mission?
Let's see. Key turning point. Can we go back a couple decades?
As far back as you want to go.
Many moons ago. Yeah, let's see. So for me, it was, I think, trying to fit in as a young man and realizing that like my style has always been we'll call it a vibrating alpha for lack of a better term, which is, to get in where I fit in and support, whether it's on the basketball court, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the family unit, just knowing that we all play a role. And then furthermore, what happened was people naturally behind closed doors would share that they don't often see themselves in such a positive light. And I think that's maybe human nature. Maybe it keeps us safe. But it was heartbreaking to hear as a young man from peers, and now even in the corporate arena at the highest ranks, that is a consistent theme related to confidence and conviction in self.
Yeah. No, that's it's true, right? And you also, I loved, and I want to just again highlight you because you're doing some awesome stuff, and you spend a significant amount of your free time giving back to the community. You have a deep passion for mental health, children, young adults, veterans, and marginalized communities. And so, can you share a little bit more about how you're working with these groups to make a positive difference? And all of these groups have such unique challenges, right? So, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, certainly. I'll take those in order. I'll try to remember the order here. So, related to the broad theme of mental health, this, as a consequence of it being ethereal and a black box and not tangible and a little bit abstract, that creates an opportunity to help shine a bright white light on these things. So that's one pillar related to mental health. And then furthermore, I would say the stigma has created a moat around the opportunity set here, right? Like, I don't know if you saw the World Mental Health Organization. Their entire 2023 mandate was to allow people to understand that exploring and tinkering and learning about their own mental health is their right. Nothing could be more fundamental than that, right? Somebody's right is to understand what's going on behind their eyes and between their ears. So that's the first puzzle piece related to mental health. I think there is a lot of confusion related to it. And although we have the most sophisticated machinery in our skull, we often don't treat it that way, first and foremost. And secondarily, I would say there are a lot of rather simple tactics, mantras, and lessons to learn. This is not, you don't need to become a neuroscience expert to understand the fundamentals of mental health. And that's the most common thing that I hear now, kind of shifting into adults and kids and marginalized communities and veterans. That is the most common theme, which is, hey, I know this is a thing. You and I reflected a decade ago, it wasn't really a thing, the conversation related to mental health. Now it's a thing, but it's almost dizzying how many inputs are coming at us related to affirmations and manifesting and yoga and walking and water, but water not in plastic bottles. So all of this stuff, I think, has created not even a fight or flight mechanism, but rather like a freeze moment where everyone is kind of frozen in and paralyzed with decision fatigue. So I think related to the communities that you referenced and places that I have found myself spending more and more time, I think it is finding a simple vocabulary, a simple nomenclature to educate and empower. And then when somebody feels like they know how to downregulate, they know how to manage what's coming at them, even if it's unexpected, right? The kind of trials and tribulations of life, then we foster this flywheel of confidence. So that's the crux of it. Children, I think it's unfortunate that we know the data, right? I mean, the data is darn clear that the earlier and earlier we have a screen and social media in a young person's hand, the more opportunity there is for their mental health to erode. So, and there's some nuance there in the data, but it is important to highlight the fact that we have an entire generation like you and I. We did not grow up with phones in our hand. Well, at least smartphones. I didn't have maybe a flip phone. Maybe I could play Snake or Snood, but the rate at with which we're ingesting information, I think, is unnatural, which creates this dizzying effect. And it does feel like the sky is falling because you are receiving, billions of data points a month, and it becomes overwhelming. And that's that's, I think, probably the problem with the modern day related to that. And this is something I care about deeply, so I appreciate you digging into what I care about. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all of that. And just it was actually like last Friday. Everything you said, by the way, totally resonates with me, right? And I knew it would. But just last Friday, Dr. Eric Reese, who's the director of health and wellness at Nobody Studios, and Mark McNally, our chief nobody, we were just talking about the same thing about how we've gone from like lack of awareness, right, to now having information at your fingertips, and how that's making it so hard for people to be able to navigate their own mental health, their own personal health journeys, because there's so much information out there and you don't know
Yeah.
what's accurate, what to trust, what not to trust. And there's so many issues that are going on. And so I really appreciate you for the work that you're doing to help address some of these challenges. And then I just love also just going into your professional, the work that you're doing as a coach. It's truly fascinating. You're sort of, as I was looking at your website, you're looking at integrating strategies from neuroscience, from sales, from management, and you've got this unique approach that you're using to help businesses scale and drive revenue. And I've always been fascinated between the synergy of business and science. So when I saw that you were doing that, I was like, I got to dig in a little bit more about that. So tell us a little bit more about your background. And I love giving people examples. So maybe you could share a couple of practical examples of maybe organizations that you've worked with and helped.
Yeah, certainly. I have an atypical background, right? I was enrolled in medical school. I had my blinders on. I was laser focused on studying neuroscience. I graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in neuroscience. I think I was the only person in my friend group who didn't do the one of the classic business tracks, right, or law tracks or tax tracks. So I was certainly an anomaly. I It was a blessing to have a very understanding family. My mother, who was deeply involved with a local healthcare system, she said the thing I think that most mothers and fathers and grandparents probably don't say, which is, hey, it's probably important for you to understand some aspects of business, and really encouraged me to do something that I think is rather commonplace now, which was take a gap year. So I was planning on going right into medical school. I was accepted, and I didn't have any other vision for myself until I went to business school. And I realized, like, wow, there's a whole realm of uh, the ability to support people in different ways. It doesn't have to be necessarily white coat, suited and booted in that way. There are other ways to really support some healthcare initiatives. So, not to say that I was ignorant, I just was so laser focused on this one track. And that idea of neuroscience was sparked um, early on in my life. My seventh grade science teacher, Miss Leeds, if you're out there, hi. I actually just recently visited her, but she really set me on a course, probably not even knowing at the time, but there was, I think, some obscure study that came out, and I'll never forget, she stood up in front of the class and she said, "You can change your mind just like you can change your body. Your mind is part of your body." Uh, and that was really an inspiring moment for me. I think probably most of the people in the class were rolling their eyes on a zany teacher who is obsessed with with the curriculum. But it really, I got smitten and bitten by the bug. And I didn't really look away until this moment when my parents encouraged me to think about business school. So at that moment, I started to explore what are some skills that I likely need as I navigate medicine. And as I started to explore, I realized that a lot of the different things that I was complete novice at were just that, skills. And I think a lot of people, when they meet me, they think like, "Oh, you're just a sales guy." Well, at one time I wasn't. I was just a guy, and with dedicated focus, I understood how to sell. Um, and the slight pivot for me was, while I was at business school, I had the opportunity to interview for what was a new breed of employee at one of the largest healthcare companies in the world, a medical device manufacturing company called Stryker. And this was in their innovation department, which was kind of tethered to sales. I never saw myself as a salesperson. I saw myself as a science guy who was curious about how the healthcare system worked, and probably no better way to learn it than through the lens of a publicly traded company like Stryker. So I started working with them, and I just had a knack for the fundamentals of sales, which were show up on time, prepared, with a can-do attitude, be adaptable and flexible, and facilitate. Going back to this idea of a vibrating alpha, facilitate a space, vibrating alpha, meaning that I don't have to be the alpha person in the room. I can, if there's a vacuum and someone needs to step up into the leadership role, but more so this idea of cognitive flexibility was always interesting to me. This adaptability quotient, which was fostering spaces for people to feel safe, and I wanted to power that in whatever way you needed me to. Right, kind of a Swiss Army knife of student teacher, depending upon the room. Um, but that slight shift, stepping off of the med school path, moving in a slightly different direction, that opened up a whole new set of opportunities. And although I think about it often, I started to really have success at Stryker. My intention was to go back after taking this gap year, but I just never ended up going back to medical school. So that was the shift. And what made me different in the realm of sales, I would say, we're just deploying very simple principles in science. I'm sure you know it's about architecting a hypothesis, stress testing the hypothesis, learning from that, and understanding the results, and then having a clear feedback loop to get back to this hypothesis and stress test again. So, in marketing we call this split testing. In sales, there's some A/B split testing based on messaging and ideal customer profile. But to get really tactical, setting up that feedback loop and compressing the time horizon is really important, right? At the end of the day, business and life is often about decision making, and most decisions are reversible. So as long as you can make some decisions quickly, I'm thinking about two different businesses that I work with. One is so hamstrung by ego, by personality, by hierarchy, by red tape, and juxtaposing this other nimble startup who's moving super fast. They're making 1,000 times the decision, company B versus company A, and one of them is just moving fast and moving forward and innovating So I think those two things, architecting the crystal clear feedback loops, mirroring some of the lessons in science from hypothesis to stress testing that and building this like learning flywheel, to the idea of being adaptable and flexible while fostering spiky and differing point of views. At the end of the day, that's how you drive impact, and that's how you drive revenue growth.
I love it. I love it. And it's like, you sound like a nobody, Matt. You really do.
I am. I
These are the
am. I am
same
one.
kind of conversations we're having inside the studio. It's literally shocking. You know, we have our weekly team meetings and we're giving updates, and you know, it's just so beautiful to see when you have a group of passionate people that are there, you know, to for this shared vision, you know, coming
Yeah.
together and just sort of collaborating together. I love everything you said. And one of the reasons I love doing this live stream is not only just to connect with people like you and learn about all the things you're doing, but I love asking this question. You know, one of the things we always say at the studio is we're going to be defined by the people that we attract to this journey. And so I love asking people what drew them to the Nobody Studios journey. And so can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to join our journey?
There's two main themes, right? So one is this idea of um, having a clear vision related to launching the number of companies that you plan to launch and facilitating growth accordingly. So number one would be like maximizing potential. I mean, that is core to what I believe we can do as individuals and a collective society. So number one is just this idea of unlocking and then maximizing potential, and then the other is creating systematic impact. So is there a world in which nobody could just focus on a basket of companies quietly? That could happen. I think a lot of firms are doing that, but I love that you're building in public. You're thinking differently in terms of driving systematic impact. So, you know, that the layer below that is thinking through scalable processes for company development, weaving in diversity and equity and inclusivity, building collaborative communities to contribute multi-layered and multi-dimensional insights, a sustainable culture that again fosters innovation, rapid execution, and adaptability. So many of the themes that you are focusing on, I mean, it feels like it melds beautifully to what I care about.
Yeah, thank you. And I loved, like, you know, in our prep as you and I were getting ready for this, you know, I some of the same things resonate with me, you know, and I want to just dig in a little bit more with you just based on your background. You know, what are some key factors that, you know, we've got this ambitious goal. We want to make 100 companies in 5 years. That's our goal, right? But just based on your background, and you have such a fascinating experience, kind of mixture. I love that. What are some factors that, as we kind of scale our studio, and as you know, we're global, we've got people working all over and mostly virtual, right? So, with that sort of kind of culture that we're building, what are some key factors that we really need to make sure that we're focused on to make sure we get to that goal?
Yeah, I I think it's. Are you a runner?
I've done a marathon in the past, and I hated running the whole way through. But
Yeah,
I
me
had to
too.
do
Me
it
too.
because it was on my it was on my list. But I'm not a I
Yeah,
don't like running. I've never felt the runner's high. Let's just put it that way.
yeah. I'm with you. I ran one marathon, and that was that. But I think there's a parallel herein, which I ran the LA Marathon. And during the first couple miles, like it is a party. People are screaming. There's music. People dancing in the streets, and that also is true for the last couple miles. But the mushy, messy middle is where the work begins, right? So I think, how do you navigate the natural like ebb and flow? And there's a famous graph that Paul Graham, one of the founders of Y Combinator, put out eons ago, which is the startup or founder curve, which is this initial pop of enthusiasm, and then this rapid decrease when reality sets in terms of enthusiasm. And there's this moment of what they call the trough of sorrow, which is so representative of probably what we all have felt. Thinking through, like, how do you develop conviction, confidence, and consistency related to the inputs? Because I think in the first phase, the rah shish kebab, first couple miles in the marathon analogy, it is so fun, exciting. You're visioning, you're architecting like really big ideas, and then once you can see that in some said period of time, 3, 5, 10 years, you achieve that vision. What happens? Like, what are the hundreds, if not millions, of repetitions that it requires to build and shape and execute? So conviction, that's something that, that's like an intrinsic motivation thing, right? It's very, very tough to dangle some carrot and just have that extrinsic motivation. There's got to be something, there's got to be an internal flywheel where it's like, this is what I do. This is what we do. This is an identity thing. So conviction. And then confidence often comes from, I always say, skills, belief, or focus, right? Skills, the more you skill up, the greater your belief is in yourself. And wherever you focus your attention, that becomes kind of critical. Where you can chase any rabbit, we really need to get super clear on what is the stepwise process to achieve the thing, and then create that healthy feedback loop. So, we put a human on the moon with a checklist, a 1 billion point checklist, but still there were steps. So I think that confidence related to skilling up, the belief component, and focus really matter. And then consistency is just showing up and doing the thing. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is today. And it's just like, that's true for mental health. That's true for relationship building. That's true for physical fitness, nutrition, business building. That is it, right? Like reps, right? You got to make sure you're doing the right reps that are healthy, but yeah, repetitions is everything, which is an ode to consistency.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's when I listen to you, it's like it's so funny when you tell people what our goal is. You have two kinds of people, right? One that are like, I'm running as far away from you as I can get because you're like you're crazy, or you have people like us that are like, we want to be a part of this somehow, right? And so I think the goal is ambitious, but I think it's also feasible, right? With the right strategy and the commitment. And like I said, we know we're going to be defined by the people that we attract. And so far, we've been attracting like exceptional talent that are not only highly skilled, right, but they're also deeply passionate with the mission, right? And so, as you just described, building that right team is pivotal. But then there's another thing that I would just add on to everything that you said was that it's not just our mission to build 100 companies, right? But it's also ones that are making a positive impact, right? So we're not just driven by those business goals. We have those, of course. We want to do that, right? But we also want to, we want to make sure we transform industries and improve the lives of people. So when you have that mission-driven approach, that's a powerful motivator for people, that propels us forward, right? And so I think it's a synergy of everything that you talked about. But with all of that, we have a solid foundation. So one of the other things I wanted to make sure, and I know we're getting close to the end here, but I've got a couple more questions for you. One, I would just love to hear from you, because we're crowd infused. That's one of the core values that I know you said resonates with you. And we really, one of the reasons why we did our equity crowdfunding campaign was to build our crowd so that we can get that immediate feedback, make those quick decisions. And, so that's a core part. That's one of our core values. And so, the question I wanted to ask you is, it also presents certain challenges and obstacles adopting this sort of crowd infused approach. So can you talk about, for anybody that's listening, that's considering, adding crowd infused, approach as one of their core values? What are some of the obstacles or challenges they might face, and how could they overcome those?
I would say the most clear challenge that might be faced is um, probably information overload, where um, this is, at the end of the day, you're running a business, and it is critical, like a core fundamental human need is to ensure that people feel seen and heard and understood. And we never want to diminish any of the crowd's voices. So I think for all of the pros, we need to kind of highlight the cons, right? The pros are, you get this amazing tapestry of collective intelligence and thoughtfulness, which sets the stage for unprecedented innovation and agility. Yet that if we don't kind of understand the nuance of expectations, there could be this misalignment of crowd contributions, not only on the monetary side, but also um, contributions with the company vision. So there is some sort of feedback loop that's required. And I think just expectation setting related to the crowd, I think is important, related to clear guidance, and some sort of robust filtering feedback loop.
Super helpful. Super helpful. Yeah. I mean, at the studio, we've got like now 1,000 nobodies everywhere. And we're in the process of collecting feedback and getting more information from the crowds. Number one, how do they want to be involved? Because they're owners in the studio now. And so, they've
Right.
got skill, they've got talent, they've got influence. And now we're reaching out to all of these people saying, how would you like to support this journey? So you're right. You do need that feedback, and you need to have that communication. I love what you said about making sure that their voices are also heard. I'll tell you, last month, I had several conversations with some of our equity crowdfunders, and it's the best part of, just like I love doing this live stream, it's hearing people about why they're part of this journey, and what, we've actually given people hope. There were people that I
Yeah.
was talking to, they were like, wow, I love this. I love that you're looking at it this way, and I want to contribute this, and so it's totally inspiring. And then what is the number one, because you're working with companies of all sizes, right? And you're doing some amazing work, but what's the number one mistake you see entrepreneurs making, and what advice do you have for them?
I think the
Kind
biggest
of threw that one
mistake.
at you, Matt. Sorry.
No, 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 no. It's good. I mean, it's a big one, right? So it depends where they're at. So there's a two-part answer here, and I'll be quick. So one is, if you're a budding entrepreneur, it is critical to get out in front of a lot of the snags and the loopholes and the mud pits that you can fall in. And the best way to do that is talk to people. Hey, what's awesome about this? What's not? So I think for initial um, folks who are tinkering with their first entrepreneurial venture, is that you make sure you understand the underbelly and the shadow of this, because a lot of people talk about, I made $100,000 in a day, but what they don't tell you is that required 10 years of work, right? So that's the first. And then for more seasoned folks, I think it's just related to the fact that we chose this life, and some moments, I mean, it's a moment to moment roller coaster. Some moments it feels like falling, and some moments it feels like flying. And it's just about perspective and support, and reframing some of these things. So I think that's some of the misalignment that I often hear, which is like, well, what did you expect? This is part of the game. So I think just reminding people that this is it's a phase, and this too shall pass.
Well, what you're saying is really resonating with people, Matt. We've got Brandon Richard. He's a colleague of mine, great human, and he said, "If your goals don't scare you, they aren't big enough." I love that, Brandon. And we've got, Jolene Sheldon joining us today. We've got some Karen Ziegler is in the house. She said, "Business plus science." Love this. And so, Matt, I always love to ask people this question. You've got a lot of different superpowers. We've talked about a lot of them today, and you truly inspired me. But what is it, from a culture perspective? if there is one superpower you can use, how would you like to help take our Nobody Studios culture to the next level?
This is, for me, it's really about a trust-based culture. I think the term psychological safety has been thrown around a lot. And trust really stems from clarity, right? Clarity is kind, being super clear on agreements, not expectations. Expectations are the things that erode really all, I would say, almost all relationships. This kind of misaligned expectation set. So I think being super clear and then furthermore facilitating healthy conversations to get back on track or to clarify the track. So a pure trust-based culture that is supportive is is really the foundation of speed, care, and success.
I love it. I love it. I look forward to collaborating with you, Matt. And we've got so many incredible people that are supporting this journey. That goal just gets closer and closer. So thank you again for joining me today. It was such an honor having this conversation with you. And for everybody else that has joined us here today, thank you for signing on. And look, hey, if anything that we've talked about here resonates with you, check out our website, join the journey. It's going to take a lot of people, a lot of talent, and a lot of skills, unique skills to really help us get closer to that goal. So thank you again, and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks, Matt. Bye.
Thank you. Bye now.